students, I'm just going to walk you through announcements and then what you're supposed to do today. So for today, the assignment is called Bebes, because we're going to be taking a look at some bebes to see what kinds of relationships they have between different species. So here's the agenda for today. It's the schedule and then reminders of the schedule, and then reminders about Invest, because you should be collecting your week 3 data at this point, your last round of data. And then the last thing is Embryology, which is like the fancy word for studying babies that haven't been born yet. So in like the earliest stages of development, what do these different creatures look like? So this is a schedule for this week. It is iReady testing, so Monday through Friday, the schedule is a little different. So Monday we have block periods, so periods 1, 2, advisory, and 3. And then Tuesday through Thursday, we have iReady testing in the morning, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So do go to advisory. You will be working on iReady testing, and then after that you have recess, and then block periods, and then lunch, and then advisory again. So those of you that come face-to-face, do just come on your regular days. So whatever normal days you come on. And then for 100% distance learner folks, you folks can stay home this week because you do not need to come in anymore. For iReady testing, like I just said, iReady can be taken at home or over Google Meet, so you don't have to come in. And then Tuesday through Thursday, go to advisory instead of your regular periods. So for Invest, please don't forget that this is like the last part of your quarter 4 grade. So please, please, please test out your solution. And then we're going to work on evaluating it after that. Right now we are on week 3 data. Sorry, I got a phone call. So your week 2 data was due Monday. And then your week 3 data, which is the final last data collection that you folks have, is due on the 17th along with your product. So please don't forget to turn that in because we cannot really do extensions for that. So for your week 3, again, you're going to fill out the slides in the workbook, copy and paste them over to your week 3 assignment, which is posted in Google Classroom, and then turn it in. So for your assignment, we are talking about bebes and what they look like before they're born. So they're not even called babies, they're called embryos. That's like the fancy science word for them when they're in their early stages of development. So what you're going to be doing is investigating what a model organism is and how they can help us to research diseases and vaccines. So instead of testing on people, we actually go through a series where we learn from different animals, how they respond to vaccines and how they respond to diseases. It is the darker side of science, but without it, we wouldn't have eradicated things like polio, or we wouldn't have vaccines for COVID, or even like leprosy, which you'll learn about on the next slide. So there are so many reasons to be thankful for the animals that we have and to learn more about how science actually is done. So these are some of the model organisms that humans use to learn more about how our bodies also respond to disease. So go ahead and read this slide when you get to it. It's really interesting information that has to do with Hawaii and a disease called leprosy, which was around during the biblical times, but it's still around today. It's just not that many of us get it because of armadillos. So check out that story. And then also you can read about COVID-19, how the vaccine was developed and how we used model organisms in order to figure out what vaccines might be effective and to even just learn more about COVID-19 in the first place. So what you're going to be doing is figuring out which of these species we can use as a model organism for humans. So model organism means that we share a lot in our early stages of development with these animals. So that means that we're more likely to respond to diseases and respond to vaccines in similar ways. It doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the same, but it does mean it's going to be similar. So if we look very similar when we're embryos, when we're at our very, very early stages of development before we even become a baby, then odds are they can be used as a model organism to tell us more about how we could respond to diseases or to vaccines. Okay, so you have cows, chickens, rabbits, tortoises, salamanders, fish, and toads to choose from. So what you're going to be doing is reading about different features of embryos. So this is what like you look like when you're like a tiny little thing, way, way, way before you're even born. So a 4-week-old human embryo looks something like this. It's crazy, I know. And it also looks very similar to what fish, reptiles, and birds look like at their super early stages of development too. So these pictures have will tell you about different features, and that's what we're going to use to figure out the assignment for this week. So what you're going to do is label the animals as reptile, mammal, fish, amphibian, or bird to figure out which of these are kind of similar and which of these are not so similar. And if you forgot what these terms mean, go ahead and click here and it'll take you to the dictionary slide all the way at the end. Okay? So once you take a look at those, then you can determine which one's a mammal, fish, reptile, amphibian, or bird to, again, see which ones are similar and which ones are not. And then you're going to be writing down 3 things that they all have in common. So all of these. And there are, some of them are more obvious and some of them are less obvious. So try to figure out what similarities they have. Then you're going to take a look at these embryos and try your best to label them. They all look very similar. So again, this is right after like an egg gets fertilized, then it starts to develop and turn into whatever it's going to be. And so in the very early weeks after that egg gets fertilized, they all start to look something like this. So you're going to be labeling them and taking your best guess and explaining why you think they might look similar, even though later on they all look so different. After that, you're going to be pointing out similar features in these embryos. So what do they all have in common? And you can use the slide that had all the different features on it to explain that. And then you're going to take a look at the mid stages afterwards and try to figure it out then. So then they start to differentiate and they look a little bit different from each other. Talk about the similarities they have, talk about the differences that you notice. And then finally, the late stages. So this is like closer to when they're going to be born. So now try to label them. And then what similarities and what differences do you notice? And then finally, you're going to take a look at this and you're going to try to label the final answers. And then lastly, you're going to write a summary. So which animals do you think would make the best model organisms? Which ones look the most similar to humans as they develop? And then these animals are probably ones that would be really helpful in studying diseases and how those animals respond to it, studying vaccines and how those animals respond to it to help us to develop medicine for humans. So that's what this whole slideshow is about. And that's it. That's all you're going to be doing today. So it's not too crazy, but it does require a little bit of thought. It is a little bit, it's very repetitive, but it's because the images, they change as these organisms develop. So again, you're going to be looking to see how baby animals of all of these look similar to how we look as babies or fetuses and trying to figure out what similarities they have.